Well, no, I think looking back on it, remembering how the defense played really well for the majority of that game, and where the offense inability to capitalize on most of those three and outs, and the defense ability to hold Tulane really under control throughout most of that game, and then at the end not being able to finish and close out the game and send it into overtime, and what you described how it ended. And so I think more of just consistency, specifically from the offensive perspective, the defense learn closing games out is kind of what I'm taking going away, looking into the this week's game against Memphis.
And I think that's been the theme of the entire season, that consistency. We've mentioned it throughout multiple episodes. And one of the things that Dana Holgorsen was asked during his Monday press conference is, obviously, with the struggles that they've had, just in terms of not being able to come out on the winning side of things for 3 out of the 5 games. They asked if he planned on changing anything up, and here's what Dana Holgorsen had to respond.
Do anything different this week, given what y'all been through, change things up, maybe move responsibilities around, play calling, anything at all, whether your approach or you stick with the way you are and where you're at right now?
Yeah, we're good. I mean, we're 2-3, and we've lost a couple of really close games. We've been in 5, battles. Gonna be another one here Friday night. Memphis is a good football team, 4-1. Play good defense. They're hard to beat at their place. So got to get ready for a 4-quarter battle, which we've been in 5 of them. So might as well make another one. It's a fair question, but we just got to keep plugging along. Got to keep working. We've been in these games. A play here, a play there. We're 4-1, and everybody's all happy. Everybody's all giddy. If you go back and you look at how the games have been and all that, I mean, play here and a play there, we're 4-1. That's where we were last year, where everybody thought I was a pretty good coach. So, now that we didn't win those 2 games, now I'm not a good coach. I understand how everything works, but we got a game week. We got it's not really a short week because we got 7 days to prepare. It's kind of a normal week, but it's abnormal because the days fall on different days. So it's the same schedule as last week. So we gotta put our head down, and we gotta work hard, and we gotta coach hard, and we gotta practice hard, and we gotta go play hard. And then we have a bye week. So I will reassess things after that.
So there you heard head coach Dana Holgorsen talking a little bit when it came to the changes. Now, I do want to caveat there where he said they're good. He did follow up during his radio show on Wednesday. We're recording this on a Wednesday night. They are making changes. In his radio show, he said he just didn't want to disclose them. We'll have to see them when they play Memphis. So we'd be interesting to see if there's any notable changes from the on-field perspective on Friday when they take on the Tigers. But a couple of things he touched on there, and I think he does make a valid argument. And I'm going to say this because there's been a lot of fans that heard what he said there, and they kind of turned it around and had the other opposite argument of it. But they are a couple of plays away from being able to be at 4-1 against some of these opponents. I mean, the big play that sticks out in my head is that 4th and 20 against Texas Tech, where the defense had a chance to, if they get that stop, they win that game. They beat the Red Raiders, and they turn around and they come to TDCU Stadium for the home opener against Kansas at 2-0, and that's the big one that sticks out of my head. But even against Tulane, again, just if the defense can get what stop, if the offense just doesn't kill itself with penalties, they can probably go down in position and at the very least attempt a game-winning field goal in regulation. They never have to get put in that position. But again, you get that flip side of it as well against UTSA. If the Roadrunners were able to convert on that 2-point conversion, if they had been able to get in the stop, they could have easily won that game. And then, of course, we know with Rice, it came down to the last final possession, and TJ McMahon and Luke McCaffrey looked like they were inches away from being able to connect on a potential game tying. Heck, it could have been a go-ahead touchdown score if they decided to go for 2 after. So it's just been that kind of season where they've been in some crazy games, and something that Holgorsen said he's never seen something like that in all the years of coaching that he has been.
Yeah, but you got to fight to get out of it. I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, if we would have won those games, people would be giddy, like you said, or whatever. But I mean, in this position, because a lot of it, and some of it, to his admission, he's been out coached. And so, I mean, what is it? What's the solution? Okay, you don't have to tell the media, but that someone is going to be watching. I hope to see it. Some adjustment, something. What is it? Because the offense, aside, he's specifically supposed to specialize in as a coach, in which that's what he was hired. That's what his resume speaks very highly of, is to be an offensive-minded coach. Offense have struggled for most of this year, and you had a really good stat that you posted on Twitter about them being outscored and the different
All the
and,
stats.
and outscoring people in the fourth quarter. And that just shows to the inconsistency. You need to put together full four quarters. Of course, you're not going to score every possession. You're not going to have consistent offensive um, execution every single drive, but it can happen more often than not. And I should say, to be a consistently good offensive team and sustain drives, and they haven't done so. So I'm going to be watching, of course, to see what some of those adjustments, what some of the things, is it scheme wise, is it what is it going to be for Holgorsen and Houston to do to turn it around?
Yeah, it's a good thing you brought up that stat. It was something that I saw going over the notes. The Houston Cougars they have a breakdown of all the points by quarter, and it's really interesting when you look at it. Houston has actually outscored opponents in the first quarter, which we think about it at how they've struggled to come out of the gates. And outside of the Kansas game, they've really struggled to put up points in that first quarter. But Houston, it just goes to show how the defense has been able to start off good. They've only held opponents to 17 points in the first quarter. 14 of those 17 points came in that game against Kansas. The problem for Houston has been in the second quarter, where they have been outscored 63-20 by their opponents, which is an absurd stat. The third quarter has been kind of even, where Houston has scored 34, their opponents have scored 38, and then in the fourth quarter, Houston has done a really good job of owning the fourth quarter period. They scored 54 points in the fourth quarter, and they've held opponents to only 22. So a bit of an interesting dynamic, where that second quarter is really, really hurting the Cougars. And even then, to only be able to put up 21 points in the first quarter, 41 points in the first half through 5 games, that's about an 8 points of average for first halves, which is not where you want to be. And like you mentioned, for Dana Holgorsen, who had been touted for his offense coming into when he first joined the program, that's something that they need to correct. And it's interesting how you see it by the numbers, just how badly the second quarters have been for Houston, and it just kind of shows, again, going back to what we mentioned at the beginning of the show, the inconsistencies, because they find a way to turn on the switch in the fourth quarter. And it's something that running back Brandon Campbell actually said after the game, where for whatever reason, and he couldn't pinpoint an exact reason for it, but whenever they have their backs against the wall, he said that's really when the offense starts to do things and they play at their best. Which, I mean, we're going to be interesting to see how that holds against Memphis, because they have their backs against the wall against the Tigers, because obviously they're 2-3, they're already 0-1 in conference. The Tigers, they're 4-1. More importantly, they're 2-0 against the American Athletic Conference opponents. And if they go 3-0, Houston gets into an 0-2 hole with only 6 games left after they come back from the bye. That's going to be really a very, very difficult hole to try to get out of. It might be too late if they fall 0-2.
Might be too late, in which then, if so, I'll be wondering what kind of changes would it be as far as planning for the future. And I know you don't want to give up on the season, but at some point you got to see what some of your younger players and what the future may hold, get them some experience, maybe get them experiences using their 4-game rule. And so, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of games left. I mean, one game at a time. You got to get one win to turn the season around. You never know how it shows. I mean, how each game could go.
And that's a great point, because it had been brought up. I can't remember. I believe it was this past Monday, where Dana Holgorsen was asked about the reps that some of the backup quarterbacks are getting. Dana Holgorsen said that Hallman Edwards has been the main guy that's getting all the second-team reps for Houston. Lucas Cooley, who obviously a lot of Cougar fans have a lot of buzz around him, the transfer from Arkansas. He transferred over in the off season. He said he's gotten most of the on a normal week Thursday night reps, but he's not necessarily getting a lot of those reps where you'd expect him to be able to see some minutes, and it doesn't look like. I would be surprised if he got in a game this season, but that's just something you heard at the very tail end of that clip that we played after the bye. Or during the bye. That's when the Cougars might end up evaluating a lot of stuff, and it could be a good way of seeing where the team goes. Now, one of the other things you alluded to change is something that a lot of fans have brought up, and granted, a lot of it's frustration. You heard Holgorsen say it himself in that clip. Of a couple plays go different and they're 4-1, it'd be a much more different tone from the fan base in regards to Dana Holgorsen. But since they are 2-3, and there's a lot of frustration among the fan bases, there's been a lot to be said about potential future of Dana Holgorsen. And he went on a radio show today on ESPN 97.5. It's a local ESPN outlet here in Houston. And I mean, they asked him point blank about those rumors. I think they even asked him there, because there's been some rumors circulating about him potentially even losing the locker room. And he point blank said that Dana Holgorsen is going to be here for the long run. He's not going to run away from it. And there's just a lot of different things that would make it difficult, is what he kind of explained, especially in terms of changes that are being made when it comes to already how they've changed the way they recruit, but also just the assistant coaches and stuff like that were some of the stuff that he mentioned during his clip. So that's interesting to hear. And then we also had the Houston Chronicle article where they reported that he has the support of Tillman Fertitta. So I would say that Dana Holgorsen's here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future, unless something drastic happens, which, I mean, the only way I would see anything drastic happening is if Memphis, they look like they're checked out, which, hearing what the players had to say and what Holgorsen has said, I'd be surprised if we saw a team that's checked out on Friday. What say you?
Yeah, I don't think the team is going to be checked out. I think just their pride and their willingness to compete and put good filmers out there just for themselves first is going to stop them from quote unquote checking out and not competing. And so I'm not worried about that, but the results are going to be the results. And if it looks like it's a lack of coaching, a lack of preparedness, or a lack of adjustments being made, then I think the administration should consider making a change at the coaching staff. But I think he's here to stay for at least this year and probably at least 1 year in the Big 12. And then say he struggles Big 12 first year, then make a change. And once you kind of establish that you're in the Big 12 and kind of gauge where you are. And so I think he's being truthful in his statements.
Agreed. My voice is a little dry there. I'm going to start coughing a little bit too much. But when it comes to the offense, sticking with the offense, we had Nathaniel Dell. We had Tank Dell to speak to reporters on Wednesday. And, he was asked just in terms of what his assessment of his performance has been. And, he said that his main goal for the remainder of the season, he just wants to win. He flat out said that's his main priority. And he said he's willing to do anything that would be required of him to win, whether that's making more plays, stepping up when it comes to his role as a leader. And that's what you want to hear, not only from your top receiver, but a crucial player when it comes to that veteran, that leadership, that captain role.
And the best player on the team. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
Player on the team. So you want him to say that, and willingness to be unselfishness and put team first, true altruism. And so I'm not surprised at all. And he's been doing his part. I think, could he do more? He could, but he can't throw the ball to himself. So more targets, force feed him, do whatever you can to get the ball in his hands for him to make more plays.
Yeah, for sure. And he even touched on some of the other wide receivers and what he's seen from them, and kind of his assessment overall of what he's seen from the offense, just in terms of their performances in the first half. And he said, and I'm going to read a direct quote. This is Tank Dell. To be honest, I feel like we haven't played to our best potential, starting slower sometimes when we do start fast. Like I remember the Kansas game, we started fast, but we didn't end well. I just feel like we haven't put all our pieces together, which we are still doing. I feel like we are more comfortable right now, but we just got to work on that, starting fast and finishing fast, end quote. So again, he acknowledges what we've seen and what we've kind of alluded to again, which goes back to the theme of the season for Houston early on, that inconsistencies. But again, just hearing him talk there, it's still it still seems like they're continuing. It's a work in progress, for lack of a better phrase, just in terms of continuing to try to find not only an identity but just find something that works for the Houston offense. And I mean, going back to how we broke down the quarters, for whatever reason, they have not been able to get off to good starts. And like I said in the Dell quote, when they did against Kansas, the second quarter they fell flat and they were held scoreless in the second.
Yep, and I think quarterback play has to be better. Clayton Tune has to be better. He has to make more plays, specifically down the field, whether it's checking the ball underneath, or just more completions, more doing anything to keep drives alive. And as a fifth-year senior, you expect for him to make more plays and not allow the coverage to dictate what he does, kind of for him to dictate how coverages play him. And you don't see that a lot. I would like to ask Coach Holgorsen next time how much freedom does Clayton has at the line of scrimmage to make changes, to change calls if he's seeing certain coverages or certain matchups. That way we kind of know, know how much command he really has and how much control he has at the line of scrimmage for him to see certain things. Or even if he has that ability to do so, if he's at that level of quarterbackism, I know, as I should say. And so it's a lot of variables to go into it, but I think better quarterback play has to be at the head of the list. Also, limited false starts, shooting yourselves in the foot. I think you got to stay ahead of the chains. And that'll help more often because you get positive yards on first and second down. Keep yourself in third and manageable situations. That way, it's not 3rd and 12, it's not 3rd and 15, 3rd and long to where it's obvious passing situations, and the defense can pin their ears back and just play coverage and focus on getting after the quarterback. And so, it's different variables that can help Clayton play better, but a lot of it, he got to take the blame because he's quarterback. When they win, the quarterback gets all the glory. When you play bad, quarterback has to get some criticism. And so we've seen him do it. He's been inconsistent throughout his career, and we've seen that continue.
Yeah, a couple of final things before we break off on the segment, but sticking with Dell and some of the stuff he said, just the mindset of the program. He said that they feel like Houston are the underdogs again, and all the accolades, all the preseason predictions, all that stuff, it doesn't matter anymore, or were something along the lines that he said. And really the message that has been reiterated to the team by the coaches, he said, do your job, which we've talked about in the past. That's kind of been the message that was reinforced after they lost. I can't remember if it was after Texas Tech or against Kansas, but that's been a message that's been reiterated. You hit it right on the head, Deion, and stop shooting themselves in the foot. That was a very similar quote, almost word for word, that what Dell said. And the final thing was make explosive plays, which again goes back to the offense being unable to get those big plays. It's something that we haven't seen a lot of this season. I know, Dale, that's something you've alluded to. And you have Tank Dell, you have a lot of players, Matt Golden, Sam Brown, a couple of different players that can maybe not necessarily be like Tank Dell, that can go down the field and make a play, but they can in their own right. And you saw a little bit of it with Keyshawn Carter just last week when he made that play over. It seemed like it was a crowd of Tulane defenders, and he was able to go up, come down with the ball, and make a big play. It kind of looked like it. Honestly, it might have been a 66-33 ball in the favor of Tulane, and he made a play.
You can, and I think all of those receivers can. When you don't get to this level without being able to make plays, now it's about getting more opportunities, and then taking the skill level that you have and taking it to another level to be not only good for great and learning how to impact winning at the next level, but I think they all have the talent to do so. They need more opportunities, take more chances. I think the offensive line is giving them enough time to put the ball down the field. It's just about, doing it, like I said, not allowing the defense to dictate the coverage, dictate what they're going to do for you. Play calling has something to do with that as well. And so play calling, from him having control at the line of scrimmage, a lot of different variables that we don't have answers to, in which I'm going to try to be sure to join the next availability to ask more questions.
For sure. And on that note of play calling, before we wrap up, it was something that Holgorsen was asked about the week leading up to Rice, just in terms of what the play calling system is like for Houston. And Shannon Dawson is the play caller for the Houston Cougars offensively. Is something that Holgorsen confirmed leading up to Rice. And what Holgorsen explained, it was something that actually started at the end of last season, heading into the UConn game. Sometime in between the UConn and Memphis game is when Holgorsen said, and it was something that the head coach felt really helped them to be able to be more free and be able to oversee a lot more stuff in practice. And they stuck with it through the American Athletic Championship game and into the Birmingham Bowl and into the season. So he did say that he could go back to calling plays whenever he wanted to. I'm referring to Holgorsen, but he just didn't feel the need to at that point. So we will see how the offense looks against Memphis on Friday. As again, when they head into the bye week after the Memphis game, it might be it would be good for Houston if they can be 3-3, kind of have a soft reset and being able to reflect on everything that's happened in the first 6 games. But that's going to do it for the first segment. But don't go anywhere. Take this moment to right now, if you are watching on the YouTube channel, to subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and obviously, of course, give us a like. It really helps out the playlist overall for this podcast, and really Houston content that you're not going to find anywhere else when it comes to men's basketball, women's basketball, and the football team. You're not going to find this any other YouTube channel, so please give us a like.